Good morning, Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Welcome to another Facebook Live. As you can see, I'm sharing my screen again, and with the hopes of being able to walk us through how to find some of the new caregiver resources and tools on our website. So I think what I need to do is go to this page first. Sorry about that. I'm clicking on our main family caregivers of BC homepage. And what I wanted to do today was just remind viewers uh, how to access the resource from the last Facebook Live that we did, which was the flip book. And then we're also going to actually walk through a case study using the tools. It was actually really exciting. I know it sounds a bit nerdy, but it was really exciting because I actually got to use the planning tool with some caregivers, and it was so satisfying, A, to see that the tools were usable, but also that uh, the caregiver themselves was really grateful to have a bit of a step-by-step process, or just a tool that would actually help them um, be able to support them in identifying their needs. So it was super satisfying. So I thought I would share the process that this caregiver and I went through today. So that's what we're going to focus on. I was thinking a little bit about the recent news around COVID and variants, and challenges with vaccines, and also just further restrictions. And in some ways, I was thinking that the timing right now of us being able to support family caregivers through some personal planning for themselves as caregivers is very timely. Uh, just in terms of bringing awareness into what our needs are, and reiterating that those needs are constantly changing. So one of the things that I just wanted to review today was how to get into the Caregiver Learning Center. So we go down to resources, we click on for family caregivers. It takes us into this page. We scroll down, we go explore the Learning Center, and then a reminder that you keep scrolling down. We have got 4 boxes. I know it's a little bit of clicking, but uh, it's we have a lot of content, so actually we have to try and manage it in a way that makes it as user friendly as possible. I'm going to bring your attention just to these 2 resources that we've developed in the past. One's a self check-in or self-assessment, and one's also a resiliency check-in. So feel free to access those tools as well. Newsletter, and then we're under caregiver well-being. This is where we are going to find the flip book. So the caregiver support plan is the new resource. Now, I've already clicked on it, so I'm going to go to the page, but that's where you go. And here's the support plan. And so the last Facebook Live, we didn't really get into too many details. We sort of went through some of the steps, but there's a really important part in this uh, resource. And if we scroll down and we look at the importance of identifying your needs, this is a really good sort of meat and potatoes around why is it important for us to evaluate or to check in about our needs. And one of the really important things that I wanted to uh, focus on or reiterate today, it comes back to this case study with this caregiver, or this coaching session I had, was this idea that when we check in with ourselves, when we focus on what our needs are, it's not a judgment on how well we are providing care. So this idea of self-reflection and self-care, it it's not focused on how we can improve a situation. That might be an outcome. Our overall well-being might improve, and that we probably all would want that, but that's not always the the focal point. Sometimes bringing awareness into a situation or focusing on our needs can just bring more awareness and more clarity. So if at the end of identifying our needs, we simply become more aware, that in itself is success. And usually, when we start looking at our situation and maybe examining it or asking ourselves some questions, it just can help bring up, A, what's working, but also where some of those gaps are. The other thing that I really want to stress today, too, and this comes back to working with this caregiver um, scenario, is that we can expect our needs to change over time. And so this isn't a one-time, checking in isn't a one-time deal. It's something that we often recommend doing regularly. So I'm going to just divert for 1 second. Right now, up March through until the end of June are actually fairly full months for myself. And it has to do with, of course, the work that we do with family caregivers at BC, but we also have some other things going on in our personal life and, projects and none of which are necessarily negative. In fact, arguably people would say, they're very positive. However, adding new projects or, adding a new goal, they can often create this sense of, worried about things dropping the ball on something or worried about, compromising my self-care. And so one of the things that I came back to, was, doing a check-in and realizing that one of the things that I had stopped doing was my gratitude journal, the 5-minute journal plan. And, I think just, we end up going out for walks a bit more in the morning and, maybe I wasn't setting my alarm as much as I used to. And those were all positive in other ways. However, I started missing that ritual. And so, didn't really beat myself up too much for letting that go. That happens sometimes, but brought awareness that actually that's a real benefit to me, and perhaps setting my alarm for 15 minutes, earlier than what I would naturally wake up. That's a value to me. That's just a bit of a personal experience. So back to the screen, we've talked about the importance of identifying your needs. This is a good meat and potatoes part of the PDF, and there's some good sort of evidence around why it's important to identify your needs. So one of the things I want to jump to now is the 2 worksheets. So if we go back into the Learning Center, underneath Caregiver Support Plan, you'll see Caregiver Plan and Understanding Your Caregiver Needs. So when you click on those, a new page comes up. And so I've already done that because I just didn't trust myself with this platform. So here we go, Understanding Your Caregiver Needs worksheet. And so this is where I started with this family caregiver. I'm just going to give you a couple of kind of some key details about this individual. So she's in her 70s. She herself has some health challenges, pretty significant that it's starting to impact her ability to care. They don't have family locally, so their family lives out of province. And the person she's caring for, her spouse, they live together. Her spouse is about 10 years older than her. Some changing needs around his overall health. So there's some just physical and medical health issues, and then there's some cognition. And so all of a sudden, things have started to gradually become more difficult, and her own health challenges are becoming more difficult. And it seemed like and there was a single hospitalization that was a real catalyst for her to bring awareness that that in the current state things were not working. That she is recognizing that she is tired, she's overwhelmed, she feels burnt out, but she didn't really feel like she knew where to start. So we started, first of all, started by sending her these PDFs, and she had a chance to read through it. And she said, right, okay, it would be really helpful for me to have someone walk me through this or walk with me through it. So that's what we did. So we went through this worksheet, and Essentially, this is a place where you can simply start to write out, some of the actual needs that you're feeling. We started with some bigger questions. So when I asked her, what do you feel are your biggest challenges right now? She listed a number of things. She listed, I need respite somehow. I need a backup plan in case something happens to me. And I personally need a touch point with a support system on a weekly basis. So those were her three needs, or her kind of her three challenges. Sorry, I jumped right into needs. So um, the next one was, kind of how satisfied was she with managing her caregiving demands? And, she rated herself. She said, right now I feel about a 5 out of 10. She said, so I don't feel like I'm managing really well. I feel like I'm not sleeping well. I just don't have time for myself. I feel like I'm getting short with my spouse, and I don't want that. And so I had asked her, what would be one thing that would support her right now? What she came back to was, I really want respite. And so for her, then we identified that, well, she has lots of support. So we put in, various ones here. We put in respite, we put in uh, sleeping, and so, talking to doctor. Um, Whoops, I can't type, can I? I need support with a backup plan. Those were some of the things that she, identified. When I asked her the first one, what was most important, she did say respite. So that's what she identified. I'm just showing how you can actually use this tool. It actually is one of those fillable ones. I haven't tried printing it, but I suspect you could print it. You may not be able to save it. I probably should have tried that before I start this. I didn't actually realize it was fillable till right now. So that's actually really neat. So we did this. We got to that point, and then we went to the caregiver plan. So this was sort of a bit more of the brainstorming, a bit more of the big picture, pie in the sky, for her. And you'll notice that we're only focusing on respite. There are other needs, but she's opted, to make it for her to make it realistic. Okay, I'm just going to focus on the respite part. So I'm going to now flip back to the flip book. And I want to go back up to the page that has the caregiver SMART goals. And what I also want to recognize and put out there is that this requires work, in the sense that it requires time, and it requires us to be able to really think about things. And so just recognizing, to try and give ourselves permission to honor the process and honor the time it takes to create a SMART goal. Because in fact, it does, it does require some work. I myself had this printed out with her on the phone, and I would have to say, okay, hold on, I'm going to go back. Let's make sure it's a SMART goal, or let's, ask her a specific question while we're going through the plan. So it's really good to have these tools printed where you can, and don't be afraid to, to say, hold on a second, let's go back. Is this, is this specific enough, or, should I break it down a bit more? I think that's a real part of this process. We're not going to get it right the first time. That's, one thing that I've definitely learned in my short time here on Earth. So now we're going to go back to the actual caregiver plan, and that's the second document. And so what this is, and I recognize that this one is not fillable. So we've got some homework here at Family Caregivers of BC that we could make this one fillable for people. So what this one is taking the information from the understanding the caregiver needs, and then actually creating the plan. And so for this particular one, identified needs, the one area that this caregiver came up with was respite. And so when I asked her, why are these important to you, and how will they support her well-being? What she said was, they're going to, it's going to allow me to have time in my own home with no distractions, just pure peace and quiet. And I really want to ensure that I either take that time to rest or that I do something for myself, whether it's, taking a bath, whether it's reading, um, whichever, she said those, two things are really important. Uh, and she said, how will this support my well-being? So her response was, if I feel more rested, I will be able to care longer. If I'm able to get regular respite, I'll be able to have an opportunity to simply do some reflection, to sleep, to give, to nourish my own self. So one of the things that we did at this point, and what I asked her, and this goes back to the SMART goals, is I had asked her, so how are we going to, measure progress? And so what she said to herself was, okay, first of all, how will I know if it's working? She said, I'm going to try, every morning, um, to just do a quick check-in and ask myself to kind of rate myself on how I'm feeling that day. Like, am I at 100%? Am I at 50%? Am I at 75%? Just a very kind of quick, how am I overall feeling? And she said then on the days where we have respite, after the respite, I will check in with myself again and just see if the respite's working. So that was one of the ways that she had identified. The other thing, I want to go back to the SMART goal, is this idea of, is the goal realistic given her situation? And she felt, going back to the plan, she felt that having respite once every 2 weeks for 2.5 hours was where she was willing to start, that she felt that was realistic. And so her ideas and ways to find support. Okay, well, she came up with two ways. One was to hire private care to come every 2 weeks. And she felt that, having the same person would develop really good trust. The other one was to have a friend help, ask one of their family friends to come in, who's already in her bubble, every 2 weeks. So those were some ideas. She wasn't keen to use at the moment home support because there was some challenges about them being able to take out her spouse. And for her, part of it was also providing her spouse with something different, but being able to be in her own home on her own was really important for that piece. So the next, so if we go back to our SMART goals, one of the things was time related. And so in this plan, we talked about, okay, she's going to try it for 2 months and then reevaluate. So that's going to be 4 sessions of respite. And she's going to just do those check-ins, for 2 months. That was where she felt like that was achievable. And she talked about ways to make sure that she could see it. So she said, if I've got a sticky on the fridge or a piece of paper saying, daily check-in in the morning and after, respite, she felt that was, the cueing that she required. So on to the next one are, her thinking about what might get in the way and how can she plan for setbacks. So what she acknowledged is that she worries about her spouse. So she worries about him having an accident in the car. She worries about him falling. And so she's actually worried that might create more worry for her. And so it would be easier just for him not to go out. That was one of the biggest ones. And that might just prevent her from even being able to rest. The other setback is cost. So those were, some. And so how could she plan for setbacks? We talked about that. So what she indicated was that she has a really wonderful support in her sister. And really her sister would be a really good person she values her opinion, she values her support, and that her sister would be a really good person to, in some ways, keep her accountable and try to help her understand that the person coming in to do the respite is going to be qualified and they're going to be able to handle anything that comes their way. So through that process, she also identified that she would not be asking a friend because she didn't want to put that individual through that risk, and that she would rather, they'd rather pay for someone once every 2 weeks, and that was a really good use of some of their income, to be able to provide that respite for her, but even also for her spouse, because he would really enjoy it as well. So, um, what will I commit to doing to meet my needs? I think we've talked about quite a few of them throughout this process, but maybe just to bring it all together. So at the end of the day, what her plan was to reach out to a private caregiver that she was, already had a trusting relationship with, to see when they could start providing respite for 2.5 hours every 2 weeks. And her plan was to try and start by middle of May. Um, she's going to try it for 2 months. She's going to create a reminder for her fridge to check in on how she's doing daily and just give herself between 0% and 100%. Hopefully she's never at 0%. And then after she has respite, to reevaluate that, and to reach out to her sister to talk to her about her plan and to receive some support in her plan. So that is an actual plan that we worked on with a caregiver using these tools. So I would certainly encourage any caregiver to reach out to us at Family Caregivers of BC. We'd be more than happy, to help ensure that you can find the plans on the website. If you wanted to work through a plan, we'd be more than happy to do that as well. It's what some of our coaches are utilizing as well. We're really excited about this particular resource. I mean, we're excited about all of our resources, but this one in particular really identifies this plan for family caregivers to focus on their needs and to work through on how best to to help them meet those needs. So I hope you have found this helpful. Uh, it's really weird actually not seeing myself on the camera. So I hope this has all worked. I think it has. And I'm wishing you all a wonderful and safe and healthy weeks ahead. And we'll see you in May for another Facebook Live. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for listening. Any feedback you have, by all means, please reach out to us. We're always excited to learn what works or areas that caregivers want more information in, and we're always happy to try and fill those gaps. So sending you good wishes from Family Caregivers BC, and we'll be back online in a few weeks. Bye for now.